When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite, obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Healthcare professionals can lead their careers with LinkedIn. Discover jobs by specialty, preferred shifts, and even desired salary. From mental health therapists to radiology technicians, it's now faster and easier for healthcare professionals to find the right fit. Learn more at linkedin.com/healthcare. Side effects may include faster job placement, improved work-life balance, and increased career satisfaction.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Tony Earnshaw, thank you so much for joining us at the World of Martial Arts TV. As this is a standalone book, Blu-ray, DVD, and everything, why bother buying this? What is the essential thing for this?
As the saying goes, it does everything that it says on the tin or on the box. This is the ultimate collector's edition. You will never need to buy this film again. Once you've bought this, you get the ultimate looking version of the film. You get all the extras to go with it. You get a rather nice book, if I say so myself, and it's solid as a rock. The only thing is, you might have to strengthen your shelves to put it on them, because it's the size of a brick.
I'm really excited to know how you've got involved in this release of the Blu-ray 4K. What made you choose Wild Geese? What drew you to this story?
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me on. I happen to have the book. There he is. I was a journalist and became a film festival director in Bradford at the National Museum of Photography, Film and Television. And over the years that I was there, I was able to, well, I suppose, indulge myself with certain films that I liked and certain practitioners of film, directors, actors, producers, etc. And one of the people that I invited to the festival was an independent British film producer called Ewan Lloyd. And I knew Ewan Lloyd from a movie called The Wild Geese. And I'd wanted to play The Wild Geese as part of a Richard Burton retrospective and couldn't find a print to be able to do so. And in contacting Ewan to do an interview about the movie, and this is before I even had the idea to do a book, I mentioned the fact that I couldn't find a print. And he said, well, why don't you use mine? I have a print, my own print, my personal print. It's currently with the BFI in London. So I said, well, I'd love to, because it's the film that was missing from the lineup a couple of years before. So in 2004, I invited him to the film festival to deliver a masterclass on producing. And of course, the film that I was able to play was The Wild Geese, and it happened to play on my birthday. Talk about indulgence. But in talking to Ewan, I don't know whether he mentioned it to me or I mentioned it to him. I honestly can't remember. But one of us said, there's a book in this. There's a book that we could write. I would write it, he would back me. But there's a book to be written about the making of the Wild Geese. Excuse me, the making of the Wild Geese. And he said, go for it. If that's what you want to do. I've got access to all the materials, pictures, scripts. So I think subconsciously in my head, I had the idea of doing a book. And then it went away for a bit because other things came in between and other projects. Then it resurrected itself a couple of years later when Ewan was at the festival again, 3 years later. But at the same time, at the festival, he had a meeting with a representative from a company that wanted to remake the film. And afterwards, he rang me and said, about your book, now might not be the right time to do a book, meaning it could mess up the relationship with the people wanting to do a remake. So the book went away again. Flash forward many years later, Severin contacted me and asked me if I wanted to write something for their Blu-ray release, the 4K. Then that went away because they couldn't find a decent print. History repeating itself. And then last year, out of the blue, the guys at Severin, who I know, who were mates, messaged me and said, hey, remember you were going to write something on the Wild Geese? Would you like to write something on the Wild Geese? And I said, yes, I would. And I said, but I've got so much material. Can we do a book? And they went away and talked about it and came back very quickly and said, go for it. Have at it.
Great.
So I've written 316 pages.
And a bit more, I bet you.
And a bit more.
Talking of the book, it's a labour of love by the looks of it, and I know your passion. Was it the Richard Burton angle that pulled you in, or was it the film in totality? What pulled you to it more than anything? As you say, you're a film, appreciator. So what actually draws you to that movie? Seeing
the film in 1981, I saw it on telly. I didn't see it in the cinema, so on its TV premiere. Seeing the film, and I loved the film turned me into a Richard Burton fan overnight at the age of 15.
Yeah.
And that's never gone away. And I've written a lot about him, and I've written a lot about the movie. So one fed into the other. I saw the film, and I like you and Will and everybody else, I'd seen Where Eagles Dare, and I'd probably seen Cleopatra on Sunday afternoon, a never-ending movie that goes on and on and on. But it's also a very majestic film, and Burton's tremendous, and you've got the Elizabeth Taylor interplay and all of that. But I was 15 when I saw The Wild Geese, and the movie spoke to me, Andrew. Mm. I was exactly the target audience, teenage lad, 15 and a half years old, a teenage lad. And it was everything that me and my dad, who was a big war movie fan, everything that we wanted the movie to be. Mm. And it starred, James Bond was in there, and A Man Called Horse was in there, and Richard Burton, Hardy Kruger. Nobody was trying to outdo each other. They were working as a team. It was a men on a mission movie, and a very good one. And it had a message about reconciliation and redemption and revenge. And in the end, the mission is a failure. They nearly all die. And Richard Burton literally kills his own best friend. Mm-hmm. And there was so much happening in the movie. I thought the acting was superb. I thought the writing was terrific. And I really bought into the message. This is a movie with an integrated black and white cast made in South Africa during apartheid. That says a lot. So all of that fed into my appreciation of the movie. And it's never gone away. And I think the film still stands up after all these years. The thing that I think I like the film for as an awful lot is because it's one of them films where you've got four big names. And usually when they get that amount, and you've seen the amount of movie, they don't make that kind of movie these days that much, where they have so many big names, and they did try it over and over again, and sometimes they seem to fall on the faces, but this one doesn't. Why doesn't it? I think you've said why, but why doesn't it when you see some of them where they've got about 20 big names altogether and it just don't work? It loses, it falls apart. Why is Wild Geese win all over? Because the actors are working together in a repertory. teamwork. They're not trying to elbow each other out of the way. But also there's 4 principles. If you look at the Guns of Navarone, which is the film that inspired Ewan Lloyd to want to do the Wild Geese,
Yeah.
there are 8 principles. I'm going to have to count them now because I can't remember them off the top of my head. You've got Gregory Peck, David Niven, Anthony Quinn, Anthony Quayle, Stanley Baker, Irene Papas, Gia Scala, and James Darren. That's 8. And bit by bit, they kind of get whittled away. And in the end, you've kind of got the big 3, the big 4 doing the mission. Well, in this, you've got the big 4, but then you've got surrounding them all these other familiar faces like Jack Watson and Ronald Fraser and Percy Herbert, etc., etc. So Ewan Lloyd wanted to make an all-star picture, and the first 2 people that he got on board were Richard Burton and Roger Moore. And I'm a massive Burton fan. As far as I'm concerned, Burton is the star because he's playing the commanding officer. But let's not forget, Roger Moore was James Bond at the time. You couldn't really get a bigger star.
Yeah.
So, and in the poster on my T-shirt, whose head is at the top? It's Roger Moore.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can work it out how Ewan's mind was thinking. You get someone like Roger Moore in there, and the rest will follow. And the rest did.
Just to sort of like cover another aspect of it, you've done an awful lot of research, and because this is World of Martial Arts TV, they were aging actors at the time, and yet asked to do an awful lot of action and choreography and stuff like that. Is there anything that you've had to draw from to express how difficult or easy it was, or stunt people they had to actually deliver the action, which 4 older men had to deliver?
Ewan Lloyd, when he cast the film, he said, I want my mercenaries to be not over the hill, but to be towards the end of their working lives as soldiers. So Burton looked older than he was. He was only 52 in the film. Roger Moore turned 50 and looked younger. Richard Harris was 47. Hardy Kruger, I think, was 48. And then some of the other guys were around the same vintage. So 40s and 50s generally. And the Sergeant Major was 62. Burton, even at that point in his life, was not a fit man. He had been a very fit man in the 50s, very active, and even into the 60s. But by the 70s, he wasn't. He had problems with his back. And now he's got a lot of running around to do, as you said. And one of the key elements of the movie is that they're rescuing an imprisoned president who's a very sick man, and he can't walk, so they carry him. And at one point, you've got Burton's character carrying him on his back. Well, Burton couldn't carry him on his back. He wasn't physical. He wasn't sufficiently fit enough. So he was doubled by Bob Simmons.
Oh, right.
Bob Simmons, the legendary James Bond stuntman. And Bob surrounded himself with about 30 British stuntmen, plus some other performers that came in from South Africa. Now, the British stuntmen included people like George Leach and George Lane Cooper, Jazza Jays, Chris Webb, and Clive Curtis, who was the only black stuntman on the British stunt register in those days. And there was a lot of doubling going on. I don't know whether you remember the quote from Clint Eastwood on Where Eagles Dare. He said they should have called this film Where Doubles Dare. Richard didn't do anything, and neither did I, because the stuntmen were doing it all, especially on the cable car sequence for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
There was a lot of doubling on the Wild Geese. Jazza Jays, he's not with us anymore, sadly, Jazza, but he referred to himself as a big ugly bastard. Big guy, blonde hair, big smiley teeth. He doubled for Hardy Kruger. Bob Simmons and Martin Grace, another James Bond stuntman, doubled for Burton. Martin also doubled for Roger Moore. I honestly can't remember who doubled for Richard Harris. Richard probably being the fittest of the lot. He was a rugby player. But there was a lot of that going on. And if you remember the movie, there are certain action sequences in there where there's an attack on a bridge where a plane comes down and drops a napalm canister, and 2 trucks explode into flames, and then you've got injured mercenaries who have been shot and dying on fire, falling off the bridge. So that's not martial arts, but it's action, and it's a combination of pyrotechnics and highly dangerous real stunts and explosions. This is 1977. There's no green screen. There's no doing it in a computer. They did it for real, with vehicles and men and flames, on a bridge over a dry riverbed in the heart of Africa. So there's a lot of that going on, and it's good editing that allows you to believe that Richard Burton, Roger Moore, etc., are in the heart of it, when in actual fact it's probably Bob Simmons and his crew that are literally taking the heat.
I've got from my sources that in your book you do a section, I wouldn't know if it's a chapter, on Lewis Collins,
yes,
who turned up in Ewan's later movie. And you've done a fairly big section on that about Lewis. Reason being, though I know he did codename Wild Geese.
Ewan selected Lewis to be the star of Who Dares Wins. On the back of The Professionals, he had that reputation of being a tough guy, and in many ways he was a real-life tough guy, because he was in the TA parachute regiment, and he applied for the SAS, etc. And he liked his shooting, he liked his motorbikes, and he was a real action man in real life. Ewan also showcased or platformed Lewis Collins. He basically said, this man is a star of the future. And he lined him up he signed a contract for 3 movies. Now, he made Who Dares Wins. Ewan, at that time, in the early 80s, had a production slate of other projects, one of which was Battle for the South Atlantic, otherwise known as Task Force South, and that was going to be a movie about the Special Boat Service in the Falkland Islands. One was a film called China Seas, which was based on a novel by Daniel Carney, who wrote The Wild Geese, called Macau. And the third film was going to be The Wild Geese 2.
Right.
He put off Wild Geese 2 because he couldn't come up with a storyline for it. But he still had Lewis in mind to do these films. Well, there was a delay in making the films. Lewis wasn't picking up the work that perhaps he anticipated after The Professionals, after Who Dares Wins. Lewis needed a job. Actors have to eat. Actors have to pay the mortgage. He was offered this selection of Euro pudding mercenary movies, one of which was codenamed Wild Geese, and he did them. And it blew his relationship with Ewan. Now, Ewan was never overt about it. He never went to the press and said, this man has bitten the hand that fed him. He's let me down. He never did that, but he just quietly let Lewis go. And then by the time Wild Geese 2 comes before the cameras in 1984, where's Lewis? Well, he's not there. He's not in the film. And yet he was lined up to play the character of Haddad, the Lebanese-born mercenary. And that in the finished film, it's played by Scott Glenn. So Lewis kind of had an opportunity and lost it. And he lost... And he said afterwards, I took the movies, the codename Wild Geese and the rest of them, I took them for money. And he said, and they were crap. That's his words. They were crap. And they weren't very good. But as an actor, you can't be sitting around all the time hoping for the phone to ring. And if the other movies weren't coming through, what was he expected to do?
Yeah. Looking at the Wild Geese and looking at this lovely box set and things that've come out, and you know the amount of detail and interviews that is on the Blu-ray is immense. And I think with your book, it's just one of those things that you have to have on your shelf. You know what I mean? It's if you're into films, this is a thing you've got to have.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go. That's the look. So, but the thing is that with it, from your perspective, with all this 4K coming out and all this sort of things, and the Wild Geese and the things, what do you feel that the sort of like, what do you get from getting this? I don't know how to explain them, but when you've got this box set, what is it giving you? What is it giving you as a film appreciator?
The film looks better than it's ever looked.
Yeah.
It's clean and it's crisp, and it's mesmeric. I watched a bit of it last night, thinking that I was going to be talking to you guys. So I watched a bit of it last night, and I suddenly realized that having had the box set for about 10 days, I hadn't even put the film on. Now, this is because I've been watching the film for the last 18 months. I'm kind of wild geesed out at the minute.
Yeah.
But I was watching it last night, and you know, the light bulb went on above my head, and I suddenly thought, good grief, this looks really good.
Yeah.
And it does, and it looks great on screen as well, because they've been playing it around the country, and I watched it in Bradford last week and in Penistone the week before. So the film looks as good as it can possibly look. It's a great transfer. They've done Severin Films have done a tremendous job with it. They've also gone out and they've conducted new interviews with people associated with the film. So you've got Paul Spurrier, who plays Emil in the film, the little boy. You've got John Grover, who was the assembly editor, Colin Miller, who was one of the sound editors. John Glenn's in there again. John Glenn at the age of 92, I think he is.
Wow.
Sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
I mean, just age does not wither that man. Then there are some of the existing commentaries and extras. The documentary about Ewan Lloyd that Jonathan Southcott produced a few years ago, and the commentary with Ewan, Roger Moore, John Glenn, etc. And then, forgive me if I plug the book again, and then this. I will say this to you, Andrew. I wanted to do this book, 20 years ago, and I couldn't get a publisher interested. Think about it. It's, as it was then, a 25, 30-year-old war movie. This is not considered art. This is not Citizen Kane or Battleship Potemkin. This is a mercenary movie from the 1970s.
Yeah.
Nobody was interested. Yeah. So really, it's kismet. It's absolutely right and perfection that this has come out now.
Yeah,
this box set through Severin, and it took Severin to make the leap and to give me the freedom to write it.
Fantastic, Tony. I'm just going to ask you a couple more questions before we have to go. From the Wild Geese, of course, there was many spin-offs because of the Wild Geese, and especially the ones that Lewis did, 4 men going into mercenaries. And which one do you feel? Here's the test. Which one do you feel sort of followed and was the best of the follow-ups? There's not going to be anything as good as Wild Geese, but something that was, oh yeah, that's not bad. They've done an okay job. You've seen a lot of movies. Maybe you haven't seen them all. Just asking the question.
I've covered some of them in the book, both before the Wild Geese and after the Wild Geese. I do like the Dogs of War.
Yeah, I was thinking of that.
I think it's
Christopher Walton.
Yeah, I think it's a straight retelling of a very hard story. There are a few laughs in the Wild Geese. There are no laughs in the Dogs of War. It's straight down the line. I also like a movie called The Siege of Jadotville.
All right.
Now then, Siege of Jadotville is the story of an Irish regiment in the Congo who come under siege from a mercenary unit operating for the government. And it's a modern film. It only came out about 8-10 years ago, starring the lad from the 50 Shades movies, and his name has gone completely out of my head.
Don't worry about it. I know what you mean.
Jamie Dornan, and it's absolutely terrific.
Wow.
I'd never heard of it. I'd never heard of the action that it talks about. Never heard of the unit. It's brilliant. Don't ask me to talk about Expendables or anything like that, because as the Monty Python team would say, that is a silly film. I do love the Expendables. I love what Stallone did.
Yeah,
absolutely magic.
Yeah,
but they're preposterous. They're preposterous in the way that Where Eagles Dare is preposterous.
Yeah.
Wild Geese isn't that. Wild Geese is rooted in reality.
Yeah.
So the other film to talk about is the one that preceded Wild Geese, The Mercenaries, with Rod Taylor.
Yeah,
a very, very hard and gritty and quite nasty movie.
Yeah,
but there are enough of them out there for people to seek out.
Yeah. So basically, just to wind it all up, Tony, you've been working on an awful lot of things, and we've talked about Richard Burton, and I think it would be wrong of me not to ask, as we're going to put this out as a little bit of a review. Tony, what do you fancy working on next, or have you got something in the pipeline? Because you are a prolific writer. Come on.
I wish I was more prolific. I tend to be a bit lazy. I'm working on a book about the movie Dawn of the Dead.
All right. Yeah.
I had to put that down to do this.
Yeah.
So I do need to go back to that, but I'm kind of prevaricating and procrastinating because having put it down, it's going to be very hard to pick it up. But a book that I would like to write, should anybody wish to publish it, is the films of Richard Burton.
Yes.
The old Citadel Press books that we all used to collect.
Yeah.
I'd love to do a kind of large format book like that, but I think I'm tiddling in the wind with that because I don't think anyone's going to pick it up. So I don't self-publish either. So I'd rather somebody say, yes, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And then I'll write it. But that's where I'm at the minute.
Okay, then. All right, then, Tony. I just want to say thank you very much.
Just before we go, I'm going to plug this T-shirt.
Oh, right.
This was designed by a guy called Mark Burns.
All right.
He goes by the name Bald Zombie.
All
and
right.
it can be found on Redbubble. So
All right.
This is a Wild Geese T-shirt. Bald Zombie on Redbubble.
Okay, then. Tony, thank you very much. And
thank you for that.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday, because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.